Hey, good morning. We'll call this morning's meeting to order. First thing on the agenda is the approval of the agenda, and we do have an addition to today's agenda.
Move approval with addition.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any citizens to be heard in the audience or on computer?
Nothing, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Move on to payment of bills and vouchers.
Move for approval.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the bills and vouchers. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of the minutes from August the 8th.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Second.
In the motion, second to approve the minutes from August the 8th. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that will go into our first agenda item. Gehrtz Construction obtained quotes for site and utility work for DMV project.
Thank you for allowing us to come and address the commission. In an effort to kind of get things moving as quickly as we can on the DMV project, we're anticipating that the bid documents would be, full bid documents will be ready next week. And when we advertise for those bids, there's a 3-week time period and a delay. And we're asking that the commission consider allowing us to go get quotes for the site utility work and the earthwork. So we could do that work in September and have the site prepared for once we get the footing and foundation, concrete, steel, all the rest of the work, we're ready to hit the ground running, so to speak. And we believe both of those packages individually would fall under the requirement that the county has for securing quotes instead of going out for bid. So,
Just a quick correction to that. Plans that are ready for next week are just the ones we're going out for quote on. The full plans are September 12th.
okay.
Mr. Chair, this is the item that I touched on, I think Jenny and I touched on during our committee reports last week, that this could probably save some significant time this fall and hopefully maybe reduce some winter conditions in the construction project. So certainly we talked about this again yesterday at our meeting too, and it certainly is I think it's a smart way to move forward. They will have the actual plans necessary to get those quotes next Wednesday.
30th.
The 30th, yeah.
The 30th.
And so immediately upon getting those, they'll be ready, and then they can go out and get the quotes, and provided that they come in within our threshold that we have to meet for quotes, we should just authorize them to move forward and get that work done.
Okay,
If there's no other questions, I would make that a motion.
anyway, that's there. Now we can get started on it.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to approve the request. Any further discussion?
I just want to echo what Commissioner Campbell had said. We've had, this is happening quickly, but we've had a lot of committee discussions on how this really seems to be an opportunity to speed up the project, but also maybe see some savings later. So I fully support the request.
And Mr. Chair, I'd also add that Klein McCarthy has really done an awful lot to help us in moving up this whole timeline. If we recall, I think we were not scheduled to even go out for complete bids until the end of October. As it stands now, that's been moved up to, I think it's October 7th, I think is the date.
October
Is
for the bid date?
when we approve the bids. It's a Tuesday, whatever that is, 6th or 7th of October.
I think it's the 10th.
Oh, the 11th? Okay, the 11th.
7th is on a Saturday.
Okay, I was trying to get a few more days out of it, I guess.
Yeah. Good job, Kevin.
But
That's on-
anyway,
That's on a Wednesday. October 11th.
Our plans are going out the 12th for bid, and then bids are due the 3rd. And then we're going to review them and then propose them, review them with the board on the 10th.
On the 10th, okay, very good.
Yeah, but anyway, I was gonna, I just wanted to give a plug for Klein McCarthy too, for the extra efforts they've made to help us get into this faster timeline, so.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to bring up the additional agenda item that we added on. Kathy is requesting the vacated public health position. She's requesting to fill that at .08 right, at .8 right now.
Yep. Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. That is correct. We have an open emergency preparedness coordinator position. I did meet with the PIC committee just this morning on that. This is a required position for public health under our public health mandates, and the funding goes through the Community Health Board, which is made of the 4 counties, commissioners from the 4 counties, Clay, Ottertail, Wilken, and Becker. And there's funding from the Minnesota Department of Health and the federal funds for the Center for Disease Control. And typically the funding covers the expenses for this position. We do anticipate, as we've been told, additional funding that we would receive. We should know in September of this year, so next month, so we don't have any idea what percentage of additional funding that will be. But we talked through this position, and the request at this time would be as a .8. We don't know what the ongoing funding would be. We know there will be enough funding in 2024 with the additional funding, and we still have additional COVID money as well, and in addition to the MDH and the CDC funding. So that would be my request, that we at this point would be looking at a .8 position.
As we discussed at the PIC meeting this morning, this is a required position for the Community Health Board, and she's pretty much told us all the duties that are prescribed for that position to be performed, and the PIC committee we agreed to go along with the approving a .08 at this time.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, Darren provided the calculation worksheet as well, the salary calculation worksheet. So it looks like the total for 24 is the $71,452, which we have funding for that position for 2024.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Thank you. We did discuss in length the job duties and what this individual would do in the community, in making sure that there are as many conversations happening with the key stakeholders. We also did require that there be a committee pulled together so that we had representatives from the Sheriff's Department, Emergency Department, and funeral homes or healthcare or fire and emergency response there, just to make sure that this individual is making the connections needed in Clay County specifically. That's on top of the requirements that would need to happen with the Community Health Board or the regions for planning. But felt hiring this at a .8 was more appropriate, given the funding, the future of the funding stream, but also the job requirements.
Mr. Your question? Yeah. Thank you. So through our sheriff's department, we have Gabe, it's his duties too, he establishes our emergency preparedness overall for all aspects of emergencies, right? Isn't that Gabe's responsibilities?
Mr. Chair, he has emergency management supervision. The preparedness is a separate role. The person in the old position carried both licensures, public health preparedness and emergency manager. The recommendation for this is just to replace as the emergency preparedness, which has separate responsibilities under statute that Gabe does.
Are some of those plans that are done through public health, are they incorporated into Gabe's plan?
Maybe more discussion for Kathy.
Yeah, Commissioner Campbell and Mr. Chair, there's some plans that are, most of the plans that are written in public health are a requirement for MDH and CDC, so we submit all of those plans to those organizations.
So this is more in the area of, for example, pandemics and those types of things that are,
Any response?
as opposed to, for example, a chemical spill that might happen on a railroad.
Yeah, Commissioner Campbell.
Who's handling that?
And Mr. Chair, we'd be a supporting agency in that regard. So this person would be supporting all of the disasters in the county. That is under emergency ESF 8. So they would be responding along with the emergency manager on anything that affects life and health of the community.
Thank you.
I don't know if we had some discussion that Gabe is in the northeast region, and this position is the west central. So as far as them working together, it's not working out quite right, I mean, I guess, but they do work together.
But Gabe he writes the plan for Clay County.
Yeah, they both work for Clay County.
Yeah.
And this position is also fully funded by the
Sure.
MDH and the CDC.
Given the recommendation coming out of PIC, I would make a recommendation to rehire this position at a .8 for the preparedness coordinator position, but also require that they create a subcommittee to work on the needs.
Second.
Okay, you got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, Justin, approve of the final contract voucher for SP 014-631-024.
Yes, good morning. So the first item I have is the approval of the mill and overlay job on CASA 31. This was a federal project that happened last year. Central Specialties was the contractor, and I thought the project turned out really, really well. The final amount to be approved is $2,866,222.35.
Move approval.
Get a motion and a second to approve the final payment for this project. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the next item we got is a approval for the final contract voucher for SP 014-591-007.
Yeah. Yes, so this is the approval of the final contract voucher for SAP 14-591-007. So this was the Safe Routes to School project in the city of Hawley. Since there was Safe Routes to School funding, we were the project sponsor for this project. They did receive state funding in the amount of $300,000 for this project. The The final amount to be approved is $472,400.51. And just as a note, we don't have any financial ties to this project.
Has the city already approved the final?
Last night.
Okay.
Okay,
I'd move we approve the final contract voucher for SAP 014591007 in the amount of $472,451.
Second.
you got a motion and second to approve the final payment. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. So we got on the porter here, or they out in the hallway?
A little early.
Sorry, I thought there was one more before us. Good morning.
Good morning, Rhonda.
All right. We are here this morning. I believe I did indicate in my budget presentation that we did put 2 new positions in the 2024 budget request. So Jessica and Kirsten are here to talk about those 2 positions. I'm thinking maybe we'll start with the intake and min choices position, just to give a little reminder. That position in Jessica's unit has been funded under ARPA funds for at least a full year. Has it been about a year and a half? Yeah, 2 years already. Oh, my goodness. So it was a position that was approved, full-time position. 50% of the job responsibilities are adult intake, and the other 50% are doing what's called min choices assessments. And 50% of that position is funded by revenue that it generates. So what we've put in the 2024 budget is for that position to continue with levy dollars to pay for that 50%. So maybe, Jessica, you could talk a little bit about it?
So, and I apologize, it's just been 1 year that the position has been filled. So this position provides half intake coverage for adult and disability services, and then also completes min choices with the other 50% of their time. So the intake portion of this provides intake services to all of the adult services units. So that includes general inquiries, civil commitments, behavioral health, disability services, and min choices assessments. Prior to us adding this position back in 2022, we utilized a backup rotation system. So all 3 adult services units staff would alternate providing backup rotation to cover intake when the primary intake worker was gone. And that just created a lot of inefficiencies in that system, because if you're a civil commitment worker, you're not as well versed in the min choices system, but you're going to be taking intakes in min choices. They also, staff didn't have access to the necessary systems to be able to provide full intake coverage. So we were kind of left scrambling quite a bit when we did this. So now it's been working out really well. When the primary intake worker is going to be gone, that this new position devotes her entire day to provide intake coverage. And then on days when intake is extremely busy, she will jump in and assist and take phone calls and respond to emails and whatnot. So it's just helped us create a lot of just more efficiency with our intake process. And then same with min choices. It's been able to provide a little bit of relief to our initial min choices assessors. And then at the bottom of our proposal here, I just put in a little bit of data just so you can kind of see the increase in requests for min choices and our inquiries for intake services. So in 2018, we received 779 intake requests. And in 2022, we received 1,269 intake requests. So that's a 38% increase in the number of inquiries that we're seeing come through our adult and disability services intake worker. And then likewise for MinChoices, back in 2018, our initial assessors completed 439 assessments, and then in 2022, they completed 583. So that's a 25% increase in MinChoices assessments as well. So without having added this position, we'd be really kind of running thin, I think, in both areas. So I guess, any questions for me on that?
So after this year, that's going to be a full levy request down to the whole?
Well, the MinChoices position funds itself through social services, time study, random moments. So what our request is for the coverage for the intake portion of this position.
So that's the 48,000. So the salary for the full-time position is around 97,000. Half of that would be funded under our time study revenue. The other half is what we're requesting levy dollars for in the 2024 budget.
Okay. So if we look at the 2025 budget, it'd be a full.
That half would just continue.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
Mike,
Part of that question is that I see it talks about being funded under ARPA, which no longer exists, so that's,
Yep, it's funded under ARPA through this year, through 2023. And the ARPA funds is that 50% gap. So we still have the revenue. ARPA is funding the 50%. So after this year, that ARPA portion will be done, so that we're requesting levy dollars to replace that, starting in January 2020.
okay, I got you.
Yep.
Mr. Prior to the half intake worker position being added, did we just have one full-time? Is that right?
Yes.
And that person is, did I hear you say is looking at retirement pretty soon, or?
She's been here for almost 30 years.
And yes, and has done a very good job.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, and she's extremely efficient, so,
Yeah. That's kind of concerning
Yeah.
when somebody like that leaves, how you replace it with the same amount of, but anyway, yeah, so when it comes to are the numbers of intakes and the numbers of those that actually end up with assessments, does the intake process determine if there should be an assessment done?
it can, if there's other services or referrals that can be offered to the person, they may not necessarily need a MinChoices assessment, so.
So that's why there might be the discrepancy between why the intake number is higher than the assessment number.
Well, and she provides intake coverage for Kirsten's unit, Holly's unit, and my unit.
Oh,
So
okay.
we have one intake worker for all of adult services. So she would assist with, intake for civil
Outside of-
commitments outside of just MinChoices and disability services, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and as you know, many, individuals that call our agency will generally start with an intake worker. And so we have found that it's such a critical role. We need some of our most expertise people in those positions, so that we're making sure we're not sending people to wrong service providers, that we've got the information needed to make sure that we're setting them up and making referrals for the most appropriate services. The gal that we have had full-time doing intake is amazing at all of the resources. And so she will be a loss for us at some point when she does decide to retire. So this is kind of helping us build that expertise as well. But it's a critical position.
Mr. Chair, if I could follow up, I think one of the things that to Commissioner Kravinoff's question about ARPA, I think one of the things that we've seen through ARPA is some of the requests that this board approved in positions were in response to things that happened through the COVID pandemic. This position was also done in response to that, but it was also an opportunity for the county to utilize those ARPA funds. And so when it was presented to you first as to the ARPA and also to the PIC, that this was a position that wasn't going to be just a short-term ARPA fund, but was going to most likely be a requirement, or request, excuse me, moving forward, so.
So the reason that this is being considered a new request is the fact that there were not budget dollars before, they were ARPA dollars.
Correct.
So now you're asking for it to, as a new request, to be a permanent
Correct.
type position. Is the same person who was hired under ARPA going to be considered and probably be doing this job?
Yeah, the current person would certainly have an opportunity to apply for the full-time permanent position. It's a piece I knew I needed to consult with HR on because of the way it was initially posted and hired.
Okay.
So we may have some pieces we gotta go through there, but.
And if that person didn't, would there be any chance that somebody internally might?
There certainly could be.
I guess where I'm going with this is I noticed in your request, you're asking for approval of these new hires today and you know, under these new requests, and I certainly have always been a proponent that we wait till everything is done before we grant any one position, you know, approval. I know we have to set our preliminary levy by the end of September, and by then we certainly should be have made those considerations. So so if this is for 2024 and you're asking for this today, is there any reason why that we couldn't wait till after our preliminary levy is established?
Yeah, no, absolutely not, Commissioner. I anticipated that this would just be taken into consideration as you move forward with planning for the 2024 budget. It was presented that way in case that's the direction you wanted to go, but I understood that might be the case. Yeah.
I just,
Yep.
you know, that's just the process.
Yeah.
Certainly it's nice for you to be present today to explain the need and why and circumstances, and
Yep.
that's helpful for us, so.
Yeah, that was the intent today, is to really give you the background as to why those are requested for 2024. Yep.
Okay, so these positions are already in the budget. I mean, if the budget gets approved.
They're in Rhonda's proposed budget for 2024 as new requests.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So I pulled these out into the new request area, the expenditures as well as the revenue that would support those positions. Yep.
It's already taking place with ARPA funds, and this will simply
For 2020.
put it on the levy.
Yep,
Correct.
that's
Yep.
correct.
What was the determination on, with HR as far as, we will have to treat these as new positions and make them open to?
The second position we're requesting doesn't have those same characteristics as this one. This one was unique, and I have not had that conversation yet with HR, so that's, that's to come. So, okay, so if there's no further questions on that position, we'll move on to the second position that we had requested in new requests for the 2024 budget. This position is a social worker in our substance use division in Kirsten's unit, and she is here with some information to talk about why we feel that position is needed. So I'll turn it over.
Good morning. So I'll just give a little background on what the substance use unit looks like right now. I have 4 full-time staff, one who completes comprehensive assessments. That is, she is a dedicated assessor doing our substance use assessments. I have 1 staff who does part-time comprehensive assessments, part-time treatment coordination, and also participates in our drug court. And then I have 2 staff that do a wide array of different jobs. They do treatment coordination, they sit on veteran and court. They do our civil commitments for folks that have that substance use component, and they also work with our pregnant using population. So we are requesting a full-time position to focus on our treatment coordination. The 4 staff that I currently have each do a piece, but we are not able to do it and provide that service in a way that we feel is most beneficial. The two staff that do the multitude of jobs are really the ones that focus on treatment coordination as well, whether someone's in drug court or they're under civil commitment or the referral just comes through our assessor when they complete the comprehensive assessment. They are not able to focus on and provide the service that they want to be able to provide to the individuals. It's difficult engaging folks with a substance use disorder sometimes, and then when you do not have the time to really dedicate to providing that service, it makes it even more difficult. It's hard to build that rapport when you have someone that you're providing treatment coordination for, but then all of a sudden we get a request for civil commitment, and then the focus has to shift over to that piece. Our numbers for our civil commitments have steadily increased over the years, and Mr. Milton, I think, can attest to that. That in years past, we definitely did not have the numbers of civil commitments for individuals that had that substance use component as we do now. Our unit talks that a large majority, I'd say at least 75% of our commitments now have that dual component, both mental health and substance use. And so those two workers are extremely busy doing civil commitments, and again, they don't have the time to dedicate to our treatment coordination clients. It's a service that we've provided for many, many years through just case management, but a year ago in July, the state of Minnesota through DHS, it was a service that we can now bill for, and we can generate some revenue, which is nice because we haven't been able to do that before. But along with that comes extra tasks as well. For folks that are receiving treatment coordination, there has to be a treatment plan. And my two staff that do this then have to have clinical supervision on a weekly basis. So there's more time dedicated to that as well. So just asking for another staff to really focus on the treatment coordination, the needs of our community, and to be able to provide that service to the best of our ability.
And you say you get more people into this program. Do you ever get people that drop out of the program? I mean, how long do they stay in the program? Or
That's a good question. It really depends on the individual and what their needs are. The focus is, if they need treatment, to get them to make that referral to whether it's residential treatment or outpatient treatment, and then make referrals for mental health services that they need, those services as well. So it really depends on each individual and what their needs are. Some, it can be fairly short-lived. It can be a month, just making sure that referrals are being made and they're getting set up for the services. Other people, it can be several months as they go through the treatment process. We also work with individuals that are in the jail, and being able to focus on that and meeting the client when they're still in jail, making referrals, so then when they're released from jail, those services are set up. So it really depends on the person. But yes, we do have people that go off the program. We try not to have a wait list, but that's not always, we do not have a wait list, but those people then that are picked up may not get the service to the fullest extent.
I was saying, there's always you say there's an increase in the number of cases, and how many fall off the not fall off the program, but
There are some that complete the program and no longer need treatment coordination, yes.
okay.
Thank
Go ahead.
Kirsten, is this position, does it primarily work with, is there some criminal background that's involved with most of these? Because when I look at this, it says there's
I can answer that.
drug courts and is that primarily?
I would say probably at least half of our treatment coordination clients have some type of criminal history, whether it's through drug court or through Rule 20, and then a civil commitment process. Yes, there is that.
Yeah, because it seems like most of the stuff I'm seeing in here, the courts are involved, and if the courts are involved, there's got to be some sort of in most instances, I think. But and then this social worker kind of is kind of trained in substance use situations? Is that?
Yes. So they would have, so for treatment coordination, a person has to go through a 3-hour training to be certified to be able to provide treatment coordination. The individual would not have to have a substance use background in order to provide this type of case management. They would learn it as they go, just like any of our other positions. If they came in with a substance use background, that would be fantastic.
Well, it just, it seems to me, I'm just kind of thinking down the road here. We're opening up a brand-new substance use facility, and I'm trying to think about what kind of coordination could there be in knowledgeable staff that we might have in other areas who could potentially assist in those areas. I think there's some, obviously, the caseload would dictate how much they could go outside of that, but it seems to me that would be an opportunity for us to look at additional resources to what we want to accomplish within that facility.
I can see, Commissioner Campbell, that this person would work very closely with our detox facility.
Okay.
And meeting individuals while they're there, and again, coordinating services and getting them referred out for services, so when they leave detox, whether it's detox or the withdrawal management program,
Right.
they would have those services then set up in the community. When
'Cause I think that's what we're interested in, is the withdrawal management piece. I think that's important. So that's encouraging to me, that it might be another resource for that facility to have available to them.
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Another thing I find encouraging is you're including the jail in this. And as Commissioner Campbell pointed out, a lot of these folks come to our attention because of criminal charges, and unfortunately, that's how society treats substance addiction, as we've chosen to criminalize it as opposed to provide treatment. And this is an intervention, I think, that would at least to some degree address that, I think, erroneous way of approaching addiction. So
all 4 of the current CD staff currently go over to the jail, whether it's to complete a comprehensive assessment or meet with somebody to provide treatment coordination, or make those referrals for when they're being released. They already go over there. I think this would just give them more time to work with the individual to make sure that all of their needs are going to be met when they're released.
very good.
Do we anticipate more drug cases, whatever, because of the new marijuana use or sale, or not use, but the sale of it?
That's a good question. I think only time will tell what happens there. I don't know if we can answer that now, since the law just went into effect on August 1st, but there will be some impact, I would assume.
In terms of the revenue for this position, we kind of conservatively estimated $5,000 as we get up to speed with how to bill effectively for treatment coordination with our managed care plans as well as Medicaid. So we're hopeful as we look at that revenue, perhaps that would increase to help offset some of the costs of the position. But for now, we did put that in there as an offset for the position.
Okay, at this point, I don't know if we're gonna act on this
Yeah.
at this point. We're waiting for the budget to get approved, and relies totally on Steve and Lori to come up with a good budget for
right.
you, and hopefully these
Thank you.
requests.
I'd rather have them do it than us.
Yeah, okay.
All right,
Sure.
thank you. Yep.
Okay, thank you for giving us an update on the positions. Okay, James, our budget presentation for West Central Juvenile. We're looking for a -1%, just to give you an idea.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So I'm here today to present the budget for the West Central Regional Juvenile Center. Kind of a brief overview. The Juvenile Center has 2 major parts to it. There's a secure portion and a non-secure portion. The skier portion operates under a cooperative service agreement, and that's with 11 member counties, including Clay County. But Clay County has the ultimate say. It's a cooperative service agreement, not a joint powers type of a thing. So this board has the ultimate say on it, but there's a advisory board that's made up of various commissioners from all the other counties. It's important to have, it's a really great design. I was lucky that I stumbled into it. It was the design, the cooperative service was all done before I was there, and it evens out the flow. So the pay financially to pay for the skier portion is done on a 2-year look back, but it's spread out amongst all the 11 member counties. So there's no major spikes in costs for counties. In terms of, usage in Clay County might be, they might only need 2 beds for 1 month, but then the next month they might need 12. Becker County might need 1, and then they might need 6.
Excuse me, you said 11 counties?
11 member counties, yep.
I thought it was more than that. Okay, go ahead.
So then 10 in Minnesota, 10 in west central Minnesota, and then Cass County, North Dakota. So basically everything levels out. We're structurally and secure. We have room for 65. We're licensed for 55, but operating, we can effectively operate right now with our budget and where we like to keep it is right around 40. We always have room for our members. It's very critical that the board understand that the facilities have closed around the state, and there aren't a whole lot left. And travel and finding placement is very difficult for a lot of counties. One example would be we had a Winona County youth in our secure detention, not coming for a treatment program, which is very popular across the state, but just secure detention. Winona County couldn't find a place. And for geographical reference, Winona is closer to Chicago, Illinois than it is to Moorhead. So that's how difficult it is that these sheriff's offices are running all over the state trying to find placements, as some of them have dried up. Let's see here. So I'll just go through the budget. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so starting in the proposed, you see the board and care for Clay County, looking at $840,000. That would be Clay County's share of the operating costs based on the 2-year look back. Again, the model itself, if you look at just sheer cost, aside from the great programming that we've increased significantly, the cost has been relatively flat, or if not even gone down. You look back in 2021, it was 840 on your sheet, and then they go all the way back to 2018 when we originally had it, and it was 835,000. And if you look at purchasing power of $1 in 2018, it's $1.23 today. So keeping that number relatively low, that's a decently placed number. The other revenues is from the 10 other member counties, and that's the 10 other member county share. The 1.4 million is what we have anticipated for non-member revenue, and that's based on 11 non-member youth a day. We've been averaging traditionally around 17. The problem with that is that number is never guaranteed. So we want to be conservative in that and make sure that we're not overselling ourselves. But that 1.4 is based on 11 non-members, and we've been traditionally getting about 17. If you jump down to, it says miscellaneous revenue, 1.08 million. That's revenues over expenditures from the previous years, from 2022. In that, there's also some earmarked money that's held by the county for a possible body scanner that we may or may not have to purchase, and also $40,000 for a gym floor and a ceiling, tiles and whatnot. But what's left over after holding that money is the 1.08 million. and that money goes into essentially make the prices for the members cheaper. So that's the revenue explained. Jumping down in the expenditures, I'll go over the new request at the end, but the biggest expenditure change you'll see is in the overtime budget. It's going up about 40,000. It's a mixture between a lot of things, but the overtime on this one, it's just got to make it clear that it's not straight overtime. A lot of it is our variable hour or part-time, that when they work a holiday, they get paid time and a half. And on the time card, the only way to put it at time and a half is they put it in that slot, which is the overtime pay, so they get paid at time and a half when they're working 4th of July, Christmas, et cetera. And that's the same with full-time. And then some of it also, in addition, we've been getting some really difficult cases at times, and those cases require staff to stay and call in additional staff, and where staff just can't leave until they know that the situation is safe, that individual is safe, and everything's done that need to get done. And a lot of times that deals with full-time staff having to freeze and stay another 4 or 5 hours. Salaries other, you'll see a jump up there. Looks like about $26,000 increase. That's money that the skier portion pays to Clay County's maintenance. That just got shifted with the model. It didn't get shifted right away, but it's corrected now. The percentage that goes by kind of square footage, usage, it's worked out between the auditor's office and the maintenance department and what our fair share is. And that's what that is. That's what that increase is. In addition, you'll see heating is a big increase for us. Again, last year we spent $57,000. I'm requesting $62,500 this year. That again is figured in conjunction with Family Service Center and square footage, and our square footage has increased. So our cost has increased there. You look at it in comparison to electricity, and my question was why didn't electricity jump up when we did that? But we got a lot of new fixtures and whatnot that are more energy efficient. So I imagine that's why heating went up, but electricity didn't, because we got all new light fixtures and stuff that burn less than half the electricity that it used to.
So where did your square footage increase?
Oh boy, I don't know off the top of my head, but it increased.
That's significant. We had
Significant.
that whole new section added on.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it was, I would say it increased by about a third of its original size, so maybe it's 100, just off the top of my head, just a guess, but it's somewhere in there, but it increased significantly. Going down the line, I don't see much other. I do like to highlight miscellaneous, because that's always one that's just weird and always needs some explanation. Miscellaneous, the majority of this miscellaneous, this 20,000, goes to having to run backgrounds and pay for those backgrounds, and those run about $50 to $60 a piece, and we have to run them for our teachers, therapists, all of our staff, anybody that's going to be working one-on-one with our youth. And that's a majority of them, that miscellaneous cost. And then there's periodicals, newspapers and whatnot that are subscribed to. Other than that, anybody got any questions on the secure before I kind of go into the new request?
It's not, go ahead.
Okay. The new request I have is to move 2 people from in our secure. We currently have them in lead positions. They're paid at line 16, and they're currently getting lead pay, which is $1.50 more an hour. I just want to move them to line 17. It's way more appropriate. Their job duties of the lead versus the counselor at line 16 is significantly different. They're the ones that basically run the day-to-day operations. They're the one in the control room, operating everything. All the phone calls come to them. First complaints come to them. They handle pretty much everything. I just would like to differentiate those two positions because they kind of oversee the facility day to day, and they're pretty critical. So that's kind of reflected there with the new request in our secure portion. Other than that, just for reference, this was vetted by the advisory board, the WCRJC advisory board in late July, and they approved the budget at their level.
Maybe if I can just point out, Mr. Chair, going back to the revenues, the miscellaneous revenues of $1,080,000. The way that works is that goes back in each county. So that's the revenues over expenditures after we kept some in reserve for the things that James has talked about. So that $1,080,000 gets distributed back to each county based on what their percentage was from the year 2022 that they paid in, using that 2-year look back. It's a little bit confusing. So that's kind of spread out. Now, for example, now you'll see that the county, Clay Counties is up now for 2024. That means we have a higher percentage of usage. So next go around when there's if we continue to have these revenues over expenditures, which hopefully we will have with this, then we will see our larger credit. That's how that works. That's that 2-year look back is, I think all counties are appreciative of that. It keeps everything kind of somewhat consistent. It's just that ours just happens to be way up because we have more kids in there, unfortunately.
Should I move on to non-secure? Okay. All right, so moving into non-secure. Non-secure is the other portion. It's a different license. This is a Clay County facility. Traditionally, it's ran about 50% Clay County usage, 50% non-Clay County usage. That has changed a little bit over the recent year. There's been a lot of issues in the state of Minnesota. Issues, I'll just kind of leave it at that, with placements and availability for placements and ability to care and provide treatment for youth. They've been denying any aggression, so that's hospitals, PRTFs, et cetera. So we've been able to make adjustments here and take care of Clay County's youth first and foremost, and we've done a very good job at that. You probably would have seen a jump in social services budget, but overall, we've been able to flex and bend quite a bit to what our program was even a year ago to what we're serving now, and hopefully we get stuff figured out, but there's a lot of individualized programming going on there, a lot of care and coordination, very unique cases. So that's currently what's going on in our non-secure program. So just kind of going down proposed revenues. Again, I just kind of broke it out, the 1.2 for Clay, 1.2 for non-Clay, and that's just traditionally, where the services requests come from. Below that, you'll see the JAG federal grants. That was something that when we opened up the CLIPS transition program a couple of years ago, that was something that we had planned on doing. We were able to get a grant to cover a significant portion of some of the staff there, and that's what that 125 is. It's a competitive grant, and we just got renewed again for our second renewal. So that's been a blessing. I had my doubts in getting it because it's very competitive, but we got it again. So we'd have it for a total of 6 years, and that would be, by the time it's all said, would be a shade over $750,000 that we saved by the county just for those JAG grants, and that's just reflective of this good work that our staff does, and the quality of that program is very unique, and it's difficult work, but we've shown some success. So they continue to like the program and go off of it. Let's see here. Just going down the proposed, you'll see the same thing, increase for heating. And other than that, there aren't really any significant increases. I think overall, it's a 3.5 increase for expenses overall in non-secure. Moving into, nobody has any questions on that, I could move into the new request, which would be a little bit more explaining. So moving into the new request, so this would be hypothetical. None of it's gone through any of the correct committees yet, as the budget was due before. But the proposal is, in the event that the detox center, the current one, becomes vacated, that we occupy that space and we start a female program, specific program. That's something that we don't currently have. Again, this hasn't been through any of the committees. Nothing's been guaranteed, but kind of looking forward and budgeting and planning, and something that we have been successful at the Juvenile Center is anticipating needs and providing those needs. Currently, right now, it is absolutely a crisis in Minnesota of what's going on with especially female programming. There really is none. There are some, but they don't accept difficult youth. Youth get kicked out pretty easy. Prime example, our secure portion traditionally ran about 13% female. That was just standard for about 20 years. Now we're up about 40% female. So our female population's increasing big time. And where we're at with that is I would anticipate a female program would be very beneficial for Clay County. And not only that, other counties would be very interested in paying for it too. And that's what those would be. So that new request would be a couple things would be pay $20,000 in rent for that space to the county, but then add 2 new positions. One supervisor position to oversee that female program and our current CLIPS program. And because right now our current CLIPS program is overseen by the secure residential, and kind of some of the staffing is done by our non-secure staff, our non-secure supervisor. So they kind of split that. And so one secure supervisor and one supervisor for the female specific program in CLIPS and one overnight position. I would assume that I only need those 2 because I would be able to shift duties, because if we're moving, we have some females that are insecure that could possibly be in that program, and some females that are non-secure that could possibly be in that program. So when you move those females out, put them in a more appropriate program that's more designed specifically for them, we can move some of our internal staff around at the same time.
Sounds like some big plans coming up.
Mr. Chair?
That's only about the 3rd request I think we got. Space.
Yeah, that was going to be my comment here. We had some presentations on other departments who also are interested in that space, and we haven't had a presentation from you through that committee. And I think, if this is going to be proposed in there, I think we should probably hear more about that. And I mean, it sounds great. So this women's area that you're talking about, or for female area, is that anticipated just for Clay County, or are you looking that as more of a needs outside of Clay County as well?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, it'd be both. It'd be underneath our non-secure license.
Yes.
So it'd be a Clay County
Be Clay County,
specific.
yeah.
And
But you would anticipate
big time, yep.
that some of those who would benefit from that would come from outside of Clay County,
That is very correct.
and so that would bring revenues in.
That's correct.
I'm just kind of want to make sure I'm following what you're talking about there, but Mr. Chair and Steve, I think maybe because James didn't present to that group, and we've heard from the others who also have interest in that, I think we should schedule a time to meet for that prior to any
I
decision.
think we got a meeting scheduled for September.
Do we?
7th, isn't we? Or-
We do for that?
No, aren't you scheduling that meeting for?
Mr. Chair, I think that's the out-of-home placement. That's the other committee that I would like to vet this through.
That committee also has participants that are vying for that space as well. So I think we're talking about two. I think we're doing a good job of having the conversations and seeing what the best fit would be, but
Okay.
But but part of this is once we hear everybody who's, for lack of a better word, competing for that space, I think then we need to be able to, everybody has to be able to look and say, okay, where's the largest need and how can we serve that? And until we get the full story from everybody and whether it's public health has input in it, social services had input on it, there's a demand for that space, and we got to figure out what's best. So Steve, if you can maybe arrange to.
Are you looking at moving ahead with that female program, or you have to wait for space and stuff?
I would need the space. Males and female, right now, we have our options, but the female-specific program, males and females, technically, they don't program well together. So separate programming is important in that mean space.
Okay.
Well, I think, that's a really good question, Mr. Chair, and I think we're going to also need to hear, if you didn't have that space and you still want to accomplish this, what portion of that could you do within the area that you have? I think we need to have both of those sets of numbers to help us determine. Because what you're talking about sounds like a really good opportunity to help a growing demographic into that facility that we want to try to reduce.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, the Public Safety Committee for AMC, this is one of the issues repeatedly is brought up, is lack of facilities for treatment of everybody, but juveniles in particular. And we, as James pointed out, we are seeing a surge in female individuals who are put into the system, and the state has no facilities, as we've seen repeatedly across the state. We have nowhere to put these folks. So I'm not part of the conversation at this point on who's going to get the open spaces that are coming with the movement of detox, but part of the discussion needs to be who could get what they need elsewhere and who's going to be limited to using what we've got close at hand. And I think that's a valid point to look at in arguing for a female program within our West Central. And I can guarantee you that if we build it, they will come. There are people all over the state looking for somewhere to put the young women to get themselves into this situation and need a program. And of course, Clay County's needs are going to be met first, but it'll be just like West Central has experienced with everything we do. There are people that really need these services. So I think it is an opportunity we ought to look at.
I agree. Obviously, I think the first thing we need to do is take care of Clay County's needs first. I sometimes get a little nervous when we try to resolve the state's problems, the entire state's problems, when it should be a state issue to take care of. And now it's fallen down on counties to do it, and we can only do so much. But going to what you just said, if this is a statewide problem and for that matter national, then some of this needs to be resolved at a higher power than us.
Okay.
Anybody else got any questions?
Okay. No further questions. Thank you.
Thanks, James.
Okay, with that, we'll move up to request approval to adopt the updated fleet vehicle policy.
Good morning.
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 So Joe's done all the heavy lifting on this and all the legwork, and he brought me in to help organize the information and package it up for the group. And so what we've got is a new revised fleet vehicle policy. We've had a policy before, and it addressed mostly our checkout vehicles, the vehicles that people can, those staff that are allowed to check out vehicles could go use. But we didn't have anything that addressed all the other county-owned vehicles that we had in place. So we had a committee we put together this summer. We met several times, went through this policy line by line and fine-tuned it and tried to include all the factors that we needed for all of our fleet vehicles. Some of the big changes that we made to this specifically was a definition section to talk about what type of vehicles we're talking about to make it a little clearer for people to understand. So we have county-owned vehicles, which are everything the county-owned. Then we broke those into sheriff's office and fleet vehicles. And then under fleet vehicles, we have assigned and unassigned. Assigned vehicles are those that are assigned to a specific department and or an individual for their use in their jobs. And then we have our unassigned vehicles, which are our checkout vehicles, and there's a whole bunch of those that people can go get the keys and use when they need to do county business. So we started with those definitions, and we worked through those sections of the policy, and we've got a set of rules that are pretty clear as far as how the vehicles can be used, and it helps us quite a bit, we think, with the future use of our vehicles, and it cleans up a lot of maybe vague areas that there may have been before. So what we've got now is a freshly repackaged and redesigned fleet policy that covers most everything we could think of. And I think it will be in a good position with it to use this in many years to come.
Yeah, and just to add, we also brought in Corey and Justin, and we've added some DOT regulations in there too that they need to go by. So our goal was to make this, an overall arching policy that covers everything that we have to deal with at the county. So,
anybody have any questions?
I have a question and not sure if I just didn't get into the policy, sorry. In terms of the WEX cards for filling, how are we managing that?
well, certain, like the fleet vehicles, that you can check out, they are ran through the mailroom. Each car is designed, or each car has a WEX card right to that card. So so we track every single mileage that we do, and then we turn around and we bill the departments for that. So in the fleets themselves, the checkout fleets, each one has their own card. And then now we've had departments will have their own WEX cards too, so then it's all tracked. Every vehicle can be tracked to where it's going, so.
So every fill, the mileage is entered?
Yep.
On every fill?
Every fill you do, you have to put in the odometer before it allows you to put in gas. That way it can track.
Are we tracking that on a quarterly basis randomly to make sure that what's entered is accurate?
We do for sure in the mailroom because we have to, actually we do that monthly. We have to because the mileage has to be correct to what we're billing. So as far as the checkout vehicles themselves, we do.
Okay.
So, I think the department ones, the WEX bill does come to either the supervisor or whoever's signing off on that, and it does show every month. So you can look at exactly where your employees are going.
Okay.
They also have to enter their employee ID number when they fill, so we know which car and which employee.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair. Thank you. I want to refer to page 51 of 66. I'm going to specifically go to item number C on PC, okay? And it says, for expense reimbursement, Clay County Personnel Policy, Section 17, for mileage reimbursement rates or for use of personal vehicle for authorized business travel. I'm assuming that policy has not changed from what it was prior, right?
Correct.
In terms of the language in there, so,
Right.
So somebody who, under certain circumstances, still has the ability to use a personal vehicle,
Yes,
as long as they have the appropriate insurance and all that type of stuff, right?
Correct.
So that's not changed.
that is correct. Yep, and we actually worded this in such a way so if the personnel policy changes, we don't have to change this. We just tried to connect the two.
Okay.
Yes.
What determines whether someone can use as a vehicle that they can take home and drive back?
The department head will determine that depending upon the business needs of that person or what they're doing. A good example would be as if they're leaving for a trip early in the morning, they could take the vehicle home that night and then leave from there to save transit time, some of those kind of things. But it's up to the department head to make those determinations. And there's some specific rules in here about things that have to be done if that happens.
What about people who are assigned a vehicle? How many have we got? I mean, I'm sure the sheriff's department has a whole bunch of vehicles assigned to that. We must have some department heads that have assigned vehicles too, don't they, or?
Yeah, like we have, just for my example, we have, they're called department assigned vehicles, but they're not assigned to any one person, so it's more of a fleet. But then we'll have like Matt Jacobson, he's a good example. He has one, actually, it's not just his though, it's his department. So, yeah, we have it assigned to them, I guess. I don't know.
There's not that many assigned to individuals.
Yeah, there's not, yeah, exactly. We found that out, that it's mostly just department with fleets within themselves that share, is what we found out, so.
You know, like highway engineer has a vehicle, assistant highway engineer, if we had one, those kind of positions come with vehicles for them to use at work, but.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the highways are really the only ones that have that specific person designated to them. There's 3 or 4 of them, I think, but other than that, no, we don't have anybody else.
Right.
And sheriff's is totally different from this policy.
Are all of our vehicles now switched over to the lease program?
The vehicles, all the checkout vehicles are. I would say, I don't want to say half, but close to half of departments have leased now too. So we do have some owned ones too, so that we're working on. So.
At one time, Joe, I had asked for some information regarding what we used to pay annually for internal service funds to cover the cost of vehicle replacement when we owned them.
Yep.
Versus what we pay now on an annual basis for lease. I asked for that a while ago, and I don't know that I ever got that, but it would be interesting to see. To me, that's going to be a clear indication as to, on an annual basis, have we benefited from going from the purchase deal that we used to use, like the 3-year life, and where you would add the 3% into the internal service fund. Be interesting to see those numbers.
I can send you a spreadsheet. We've got that now where, for the checkout vehicles specifically, just off the top of my head, I know we sold 13 vehicles, roughly $150,000, and it's roughly close to $152,000 to lease over the course of 2 years. So we don't have a payment for 2 years, and then we're gonna turn around and resell in year 3, because that's the highest, and recapture that back. So it's turning out to be a pretty good deal, but I can certainly send.
Well, I certainly, I'm
Yeah, you want to see it.
curious to see the,
Yep, yep. What we do is we put together a sheet that has a 3 and a 4 year value, so you can see, we found out, me and Lori, that if you hold the cars for 4 years, you really lose quite a bit of money. So if you sell it in year 3, then that's when you capture that. That's kind of the name of the game there, and then you can get your money back, a lot of it, so. But I can certainly send the board.
And Mr. Chair, as Joe said, Commissioner Campbell, we've been working on this for quite a bit. I think that it may just be beneficial to bring it to the full board for.
Sure.
Yeah, I can, yeah.
Because I think it is extremely promising. I think that what was shared with us in the presentation has started to come to fruition.
Yep.
Especially with the high prices of resale. I think you're seeing Lori making adjustments within the budgets from, say, just an example, if there is a $6,000 internal reserve, we're able to drop that down to $2,500. So.
but I think that's an excellent thing to bring forward, because I think our citizens like to hear that kind of thing. And so it's good for us.
We'll work with Lori and
Yep.
get that before.
We can get that, yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Couple final notes on the policy. We with the committee, we sat down, basically went through with HR, administration, the departments and everything of all the issues, concerns, and questions they'd had regarding vehicles and made sure they were all addressed. And we also had the county attorney's office review the policy and make sure that it was there was no liabilities to us. And with all that, we would like a motion to adopt the fleet vehicle policy.
All right.
I would so move that we adopt the updated fleet vehicle policy.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to update the fleet vehicle policy. Any further discussion?
Just had a question on, I don't see in here, I know we have some policies that include car washes. Is that identified in any of these, or is that not applicable to these fleets? Because that's not necessarily.
I don't know if we have any language in here. We do have, like, each fleet has a sticker at Holiday is what we do, and we get billed every month for that.
Okay.
Is what we do.
All right.
So, as far as the fleets, the maintenance, we kind of watch it.
Maintenance does it. And then the other piece is, when you go to Casey's, you can punch in your own rewards and you can personally earn rewards based on your purchases. How do we deal with that with employees? Is there a county rewards that you type in so that we avoid them getting, do you know what I'm trying to say? It's kind of what we've done with the Menards rebates to make sure that the rebates go to the county, not the individual.
Right.
Try to remember what happens when you swipe your WEX card.
Right. Well, yeah, I think when you swipe, I can.
Matt's
check into
raising
that,
his
but
hand, I guess, Becky.
I don't remember that popping up, but.
Good morning. So I can just say, I think when you use your WEX card, I don't even think you get that option to enter in the rewards. You have to enter in your employee ID number, so it tracks who is actually driving the car and filling it up. And then your odometer, and then your employee ID, and then I think that's it. I don't even think it gives you an option to do like a car wash or anything like that.
Right.
So.
Thank you, Matt.
But do you think there should be a caveat that that's other municipalities have gotten in trouble about those additional rewards going to an employee, not the jurisdiction? Do we have an area where we can talk about that?
Put some language in that covers that.
I want that to be an avoidance.
Yeah.
We'll add a bullet under fuel card procedures.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Thank you for your work on this thing.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, Mark, you're going to stay up here, petition to survey sections 31 and 32, Morken Township.
Good morning.
Good morning again.
Well, this one is unique. I brought along some help I've got Mike Gleaser from the Attorney's Office and Matt Jacobson from Planning and Zoning. They're going to be working with us on this particular topic. What happened was we received a petition to survey 2 sections from some taxpayers, and they followed, they sent it in, and now as a county, we have to respond to that petition. It was a letter that was originally sent to the county auditor, which is how it's supposed to go. And there's a specific statute, Minnesota Chapter 381, that talks about this and allows this to occur. So I got a couple slides here I'll go through kind of quick. This is the actual letter. I think it's in your packet too, but it talks about what their concerns are and why they're asking for this. I put the other little map to show you where in the county we're talking. This is the whole county. The little green squares are the 2 sections in Morken Township, and they're just basically just northeast of here. The petitioners are basically disputing some section corners that are in place. These section corners were done by the county surveyor in 2010, who was Brian Rittenhouse at that time. And there's the position of those corners are being disputed, and that's why they're asking for them to be redone. Here's a picture of that section, and the landowners, there's 11 properties, or 11 tax parcels, 9 different owners, because there's some owners that own more than 1 parcel. So the way this works right now is we basically are following right through the statute. This was 381.01 was them sending us a petition requesting that these 2 sections be resurveyed. The very next step, 381.02, is this board shall fix a time and place to consider this petition. So that's what I'm here today to ask for. We have to have at least 3 weeks of public notice that this meeting is going to be, that this consideration will take place. So that's why I have Matt and Mike here to help me figure out how we're going to do the notification process, but we need to notify these landowners that this resurvey may be taking place. So at a future date, about a month from now, we'd like to have this petition considered by this board, and at that point in time, the board will have the opportunity to decide whether they want to or don't want to have the survey done. And there's some bunch of other steps we can do at that time, talking about who will conduct the surveys and how it will be financed and those kind of questions. Let's see. I
guess I was wondering when you're talking about how it'll be financed. Since they're the petitioners, do they finance it or?
The statute specifically states that this board has the authority to assess the cost of the survey back to the affected parties, which in this case would be everybody in those 2 sections. So that's an option.
It's not just the petitioners, but everybody?
Yes, correct. Because all of the landowners would be affected by the surveys, because those surveys are impacting everything in those 2 sections.
Okay. So at this point,
So where's my note? So at this point, what I'm asking from the board is to set a date to consider this petition. We're suggesting Tuesday, September 19th, as your meeting, whatever time you think, whether it's 8:45, 9 o'clock, whatever. But we need to know that, and then at that time, we'll start the effort to notify the landowners in this area that meeting will be taking place.
Mr. Chair, so I have a question, to hear this petition. One, I just want to make note that there are several spelling errors, which makes it difficult to follow. So, I don't know if.
Yeah.
I'll just say that. But the second piece is if we approve hearing the petition, that in no way validates the claims made on the petition.
Right. Right. All we're doing at that meeting would be listening to it and then trying to decide, well, you will get to decide whether you want to have it surveyed or not.
So I understand, because I'm not seeing it in the memo, the notes from the contracted surveyor, Brian Rittenhouse, are available, or the claim is that they've not been made available, nor are they available on the website?
That's true.
Correct. Okay.
One other thing I should mention is the petitioners sent a packet of information to the county attorneys, which included in that was a jump drive that had a bunch of information on it, including a PowerPoint that explained in great detail all of their concerns. It's 127 slides long.
Okay.
So they've provided us quite a bit of information on what.
And my understanding, probably a sideways, trying to understand, so Brian Rittenhouse did the surveys for all of the sections in Morken Township, I would assume, during that time?
I don't know if they did the whole
Okay.
township.
So would it be appropriate to assume that there are additional sections that have not been submitted as they're supposed to? And should we internally look to see if that's the case?
Yes, and yes, that would be true, and that's part of our section corner remonumentation program that we have in place now.
Right.
Is to basically make sure that the stuff that is been done is valid and correct. One note on that with our remonumentation program is the way that the survey was originally done and the way it's most efficiently done is when we do it a township at a time.
Right.
Because they do the outside of the township and then they do the inside. So right now, that program has been working on the eastern edge of our county because of, well, we need to have something known to connect to, so it works a little better for us, but we've not gotten to Morken Township yet.
Okay.
Have we got is that a big amount of land that's involved in this?
2 seconds.
Or how far is this marker off, or?
Well, according to the petition, it says it's 33.
33 feet is what they're saying. The section corner was established 33 feet from where it should have been.
According to,
That's the claim.
Okay. Very good. Do you need a motion to do something here, or?
I need a motion to set a time and date to hear this petition, to consider this petition.
And I think it's probably fair to state that people that might be watching don't know how large a section is, and so a section is a mile by a mile by a mile by a mile. And so the claim here is that there are 2 sections that are off.
Right. Yeah, because it's the 3 section corners between those 2 that are being considered to be not good.
Okay.
so then if other section corners were placed based on those section corners,
Correct.
the problem could expand.
Yes, it certainly could.
And that's where my question came up is, before the snow flies, which we know is inevitable, is it our due diligence to look into this fall those adjacent sections?
Yeah, but we wouldn't have a way without surveying those corners of knowing whether they're correct or not. You know, we just know that there's been a section corner, monument form filed with the recorder's office.
Mark, could you pull up the other towns, the full county, and show give the board kind of an idea of where we are from a monumentation standpoint?
Oh, okay. Yeah, so here's the whole county. Since we started our targeted section corner remonumentation program, we started in Eglon Township, and we've done Park, Tansum, Humboldt, Scree, because we're trying to do them a section or a whole township at a time. And we've got, this year, we were planning for them to work in Hawley Township to finish that out. And then because when we redo these, like you're saying, everything's tied together, we wanted to start from an edge so that it's easier to work. So that's kind of what we started at the eastern edge. And now our plan was to kind of work our way up and then across and around. And, you know, it takes, I don't know, anywhere from $60,000 to $80,000 to do a township, or more, depending on where they are. But so it's going to take us a while to get to all these corners.
So if I'm understanding the questions earlier that Commissioner Rojo brought forward, so our issue would be is, you know, you prefer to start, whether it was east or west, it wouldn't matter. But if we started, so in this case, not only in order to get to Morken, you would suggest that we would start at Craigness to make sure that everything is.
It makes it a little easier for us, especially in the GIS world. But if we had to move to a different township, we certainly would do it. And we could do 2 sections even, and it's all doable, but then the question always is what's outside that, so that's why we try to do a whole township.
Yep,
If we-
and I totally appreciate and understand that. I also understand that Eglin and Park are substantially more difficult based on the terrain than those of us that chose to live in the valley, that
Yeah, exactly.
you can watch your dog run away for 3 days, so,
Yeah, we started with the hardest part
Yeah.
on purpose, kind of.
yeah.
It was also the areas of the county where we had the most errors with location
Right,
information, so.
right, gotcha, okay, thank you.
This was, Mr. Chair, is it okay? Thank you. So this was, these surveys were done back in 2010, right?
Correct.
What, has our, in the hiring process, that we just did that this year too, when we
Yes, we
hired
just-
for a new surveyor, right?
A couple weeks ago.
In that process, do we outline the requirements of the full duties to,
Yes.
from beginning to end, right?
Yes, it was
That
actually,
include all of the stuff where we have to record these things and everything. How does that process differ from 2010?
we didn't have a contract, specifically what you're talking about is a contract that we just did like 2 weeks ago. We didn't have that in 2010 with our county surveyor. That was one of the issues that we addressed in 2014 and 15 when we changed how we do that, is to have a little better control over the product that we're receiving.
No, we're going to have to, I think we need to set this hearing and.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I asked some fellow counties about this, and nobody's had one of these. This petition is really rare. So,
It seems to me that I recall an issue, and it's so interesting because it's very close to this, and it happens to be in my home township of Oakport. There was also some areas there that the same argument was that a corner was 33 feet off.
yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to, I mean, it might, and as close as they are, I wonder if it can,
Right.
But I think we need to find out.
Right.
Thank you.
How many roads do you need to move then?
None.
Excuse me.
No roads, just maybe some property lines, but
All right,
Mr. Chair, I would move that we set Tuesday, September 19th, 2023, and I just want to look at Jackie to see, do we have anything on the agenda for 9 a.m. that day at this point? Okay, I would move that the hearing be set for 9 a.m. For the petition to survey sections 31 and 32 of Morken Township.
Second.
okay, we got a motion, and a second, to set up the date. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, get her done.
thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, so after that meeting, then we would decide, right?
Right.
And I'm just kind of thinking ahead a little bit and maybe go to a question for Mike, who's in our audience here. Mike, I'm just wondering if, do we have the ability to go into an executive session regarding something like this? I'm just thinking about potential issues that could arise.
Morning. I think that's correct, and I would plan on having some memorandum ready for the board before the hearing with some guidance and what I would think we'll probably see come out of the petition. There's some litigation that occurred revolving around these property lines about 10 years ago. I want to dig into those issues, and the pleadings in that are probably something that would be enlightening for us all too. So, I think today Mark's done a great job of just explaining that we need to get the ball rolling. This is sort of the kickoff, but I would anticipate getting you all much more background information before this hearing date comes up, and at that point, I think executive sessions or closed door sessions would probably be appropriate to discuss. Especially if there turns out to be any sort of county liability that gets called into question, then for sure.
That's where I was going with.
Yeah, so I agree, and I think those things are all possible, and hopefully in the next 2 weeks, I'll be able to shed a little more light on some of that with you.
And going back to what I was talking about, where I recall another instance in Oakport, which is really close, and it seems to me that developed over the issue of, with the watershed regarding maybe some land acquisitions or something during the flood. I just remember, and that same 33 feet, I remember coming up where somebody contested that it was off 33 feet in Oakport.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see if there's any correlation there, but.
And on the same hand, if anyone remembers any more specifics about that and has something I could look up, certainly look at that too.
Okay, right, okay, yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Before we proceed, I know we're just about done. Does anybody need a break?
I'm going to just.
Okay, we'll take a short break.
No, did we vote? We did vote, yeah.
Yeah, I think we voted that, yeah.
Oh,
Did we vote?
I don't think so.
I don't think we
No,
did.
You have motion and a second, but no vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Tim, thank you, Tim.
Get done, so.
And we'll move on to the next budget presentation with extension with Cecilia.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm a little hoarse, so pardon me if you can't hear me well. I'm not feeling the best today. So thank you for your continued support with Minnesota, University of Minnesota Extension Youth and local ag. Your partnership is very important to us, and while the work we do across the state is in partnership, we cannot do this work without your support. And so I want to acknowledge that we appreciate the continued support with Extension. Together, obviously, our mission is to make a difference in the lives of Minnesotans here in Clay County. I know you have the budget in front of you, but I want to allude to the MOA agreement that we have between the university and Clay County. For 2024, there's a COLA increase of 2.5, and that's already negotiated with our MOA that we began in 2022. So basically the pricing, as you all know, is negotiated through the AMC. So we are not renegotiating right now, but really just talking about the COLA increases. Some of the things that I included in the budget, salaries, benefits, professional development, training, mileage, meals for those staff. And then we also have professional development, accounting, payroll, and some of the research and liability that goes with that. In the budget that you have in front of you, I want to just bring your attention to the staff amount of $234,251, and that's including the 2.5 COLA increase. And then just under the bottom of that are all supplies. And then we have rent in there, $22,234. Office supply at $2,400, and that's including the 4-H software that we use for QuickBooks, and also some of the 4-H online software that we use for fair season. And then we also have equipment over 500. Sometimes we have to buy different things for staff, camera or something like that, so that they can do their work, do Zoom calls and such things. And then we just tag $600 under miscellaneous as things come up, bringing our overall budget to $332,386. So that's pretty much our budget. Basically just kept everything same with the change in the staffing, with the support staff also in there. We changed that from county hire to university hire. So currently you will have one full-time 4-H youth development educator, a 0.8 educator. So between the youth development, you have 1.8 FTE, and then 1 FTE local ag, and then we also have 1 FTE support staff, all under this budget.
Mr. Chair?
Questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Want to say thank you for the presentation. In regards to the revenue, I think it's important to give major thanks. Glendon Farms has
Yes.
provided, and I know that's a group of folks, but have provided $10,000 annually for a long, long time. And those funds really do go to bolster the work that Extension does. We've used it for interns, we've used it to pay part of the Extension staff as well, but just thank you to them because that's huge. I think it's important to note for the rest of the board, we do have 2 openings with our contracted staff right now. The APRN, is that-
AFNR.
AFNR, Ag, Family Natural Resources, Food Natural Resources position that's been held by Randy for a long time. Randy's moving on to another great endeavor, but do have an opening there. And then our extension educator for the 4-H youth position, Macy, was hired by the region. So now there are 2 open positions. And we're in the process, as I'll report in my committee reports, of doing those interviews. We hear a lot about, back to the 4-H days, of our cost per wear, and about the work that both positions do, and the people that they come in contact, and the amount of people that they're really working with. And as someone who's incredibly invested in 4-H on a number of different levels in Clay County, we currently have a 1.8 position there. So we have Mindy with the 1 point, and then the 0.8 was the position that Macy had. I think are significantly underestimating the need of those 2 positions. And I know that we have a contract. I just want to see what the appetite would potentially be for this board to switch what the AFNR, which is the full-time position, either bring that to a 0.9 and bring the other one up to a 0.9, or bring one to a 0.8 and bring one to a full-time. I know that based on conversations with Cecilia and Commissioner Krabenoff from his work in soil and water, and hearing what Otter Tail has done with a joint collaboration, there are a lot of great funds existing for natural resources positions right now. And wondering if we could fill the void of the 0.8 in the AFNR through conversations of finding additional partners for that. I know that there are a lot of different conversations that need to happen, but it needs to happen at this board level. I will say that the extension educator component for 4-H, we had 1 applicant for that position. And a long time ago, when Scotty Campbell and I were in 4-H together, we had 2 full-time 4-H positions, and it was really great. And I think the reason so many of the folks from that generation have grown to be great leaders and give back to 4-H is because of the work that happened there. I'm not saying that Randy Nelson's position didn't have that same component, but I think there's additional funds available that could make that full-time with conversations. And I'm telling you what I'm seeing, wondering if there could be an amendment to that contract to make that 4-H piece 2 full-times. And I think now's the time to do it when you have 2 open positions, really.
If I may. Yeah, just to add what Commissioner Mojo was saying, I'd be in full support of having that discussion to see what we can do to fill that gap and see if we could increase that to a full-time. I think it's well warranted, and I think we certainly have partners around that would support it.
And I think, as a clarity, I'm not asking for new requests on what the budgeted line item from this board is. What I'm asking is that we tweak to have, you're still 2.8 positions right now. And it would just tweak to be that first one on the line item be a 0.8, and then the second line item on the 4-H Youth and Development be a 2.0. And then we have those further discussions to see if we can bolster the positions. And I'll also state, if we look back at your budget, what is budgeted versus actual repeatedly. Last year for the 2022 budget for extension, what was budgeted was 334,097, and what actual was 283,456.
Because of some open positions that we don't.
Right, and it's, I mean, that went into the final budget, but when the actuals came in, extension was substantially under the number.
Well, are you asking the board to make that decision, or?
Well, I think I would like to have a dialogue based on what your thoughts are. If that's something that you would entertain, we'd need to make a request to extension to amend what the contract is on the positions.
Can I add to that, our current agreement ends end of this coming year after the 2024 year. The AMC and university will get together again, renegotiate the MOA agreement for another 3 years. So if, we'll probably come back again at the end of 2025 and talk about this again. So I'm just putting that out there if that's an option too. But Commissioner Mojo's point, the .8 position, usually when we've hired for Clay County, you would expect a lot more candidate pool, and with the .8 maybe deterring people from applying. But we also want to be careful about the other position too, because then we'll run into the same issue if we're cutting down, so.
Well, if I can.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think it's important for us to see where the demands and where the influences are within these positions. I recall some of Randy's reports to us in terms of his annual contacts and all that type of thing. And if you compare that to some of the stuff that's going on within our 4-H youth development program, is there a higher demand for the youth development to switch those, as Commissioner Mojo was talking about? And I certainly think it's appropriate for us to look at that. And I know it was just brought up that, we could do this in 2025. The fact of the matter is right now there's those two positions open.
Yeah.
And so is this more of a time to, if we know, if this board's determination is where we think that adjustment needs to happen, why just delay the inevitable?
Right, I was just putting it out there.
Because in 2025, then it's a contract opening. But I don't know what Minnesota's process is for opening up a contract,
Yeah, so I did have, and maybe Steve and Brian can echo this, I did call Kaya Harris last week from State Extension to just talk about, understanding that the ag position probably, they don't want to lose time, but knowing that there's an opportunity to get an additional bump in there from another organization, I think would probably entertain it. But there is an avenue for the county to amend the contract based on the needs. And in the legality purposes, Brian can talk to that, but counties do adjust mid-contract.
Yeah, it's
And
90-day notice.
Just going back a little bit in time here too for the rest of the board. I know at one time when we first brought in the extension educator for Randy's position, we had a discussion about where are the demands and where are the needs, whether it was going to be horticulture or whether this should be more ag related. And then we heard from a lot of people that the ag people have their own consultants that they deal with when they go through buy their seed and all that process. So that's when we kind of decided that emphasis in that educator position would be more towards the horticulture side of things, right? So, and Randy's very good at that. But it's interesting that when we're talking about this is we have an incredible Master Gardener program in Clay County. And I think it's even gotten better. He's shaking his head no. But there's no funding for it. But there's an awful lot of knowledgeable people there. But I just think that, I think we should review this now.
Just a question. Are we proposing not to have that position filled that Randy had previous to this?
No, I'm not proposing that at all. What I'm proposing is that, knowing that we have 2 open positions, the advertisement for now I misplaced it. The advertisement that's happening right now for the 4-H position would be 1.0. And it would bump the AFNR, which was Randy's, to a 0.8, with the understanding that we are going to other partners to ask for the potential to bolster that to a 1.0, similar to what we've done with Glendon Farms, and Glendon Farms has added $10,000 to the pot. I think, and I don't have my math in front of me, but I think we're talking about $7,600, $7,700 to see if somebody has an additional funding to make that up to a 1.0, but it wouldn't be a new request from Clay County.
Yeah, I'm just looking at Table A here, and it's showing that at this point, there is no funding on program coordinator for horticulture or Master Gardener.
Because that has been covered
By
above
the-
in the AFNR piece.
Okay,
That's Randy's position.
that clarifies it.
And
I can tell you just from the experience within my family, the Master Gardener program needs a little attention. The recruiting and the follow-up just isn't there. And you've got a fairly old group of people, and you've got a lot of North Dakota people in Master Gardening program, but on this side, I think it could stand a little more energy.
Can you speak a little bit more about like what specific things are needed?
Are you familiar with the people that were interns, I believe it was last year, and were doing their internship and were going to be?
Yeah.
They're off the chart now. They're not active within the group. And you've got some of the older members of the Master Gardeners who are trying to keep a lot of programs up and running, but it's a lot of work to put on some of these folks. And I think getting the word out, because it's a great program, and there are great things that can be done with it. This campus benefits from it. I know our new administrative area, our building out that we purchased, would benefit from the Master Gardener, but are there people who have time and energy to put into a new project? And at this point, I would say probably not. And I know education is part of that program. I think that was where Randy was really his strong suit. But recruiting and getting people assigned and working the various projects around the county needs a little more energy and a little more emphasis.
Cecilia, we have a regional office in Moorhead and folks there that deal with the Master Gardener components as well. Wondering if we, taking the feedback that you're hearing from Commissioner Ebinger, make sure that maybe we get a regional staff involved in helping kind of lead the charge in the time when we can fill the position.
Yeah, that's something I'll have to look into as far as because it's heavily volunteer-based, so I don't know what the staff time is, but I know if they need to, I know we just talked to Sandy about setting up a room for a meeting. That's something that our county support staff can do, helping them set up a room for a meeting or, helping them cater or things like that. I know that falls under the county support staff position, so we just have to maybe I need to connect with you more about different things.
When I spoke earlier of that I thought the Master Gardener program was doing well, because I thought Randy had indicated that enrollment in the Master Gardener program has been higher than it's ever been.
They had a real bump in it, I believe was last year. But right now, nobody's working any projects or showing up that was in that cadre.
And we also share with NDSU too, so they participate in our program that feeds into the numbers, and then people kind of trickle out too, so.
The other item I'll note, and I know this is part of the feedback that maybe Commissioner Ebinger has heard, and the feedback that I hear from folks is when I look at the budget, there's not a line item for travel and expenses. And part of the problem when you have a county fair that's in Barnesville and you have school program in Ullin and Felton and Hawley, we're requiring staff to pay for fuel to get to these places and not be reimbursed for it. And so, well, where are they getting reimbursed from it?
That is part of the MOA, so we pay for that.
So so that's all in the MOA, not on here? Okay, all right, good, thank you.
So they put, like Mindy, all the educators put their amount through our financial system, and they get reimbursed through that.
Gotcha, sorry.
If I can follow up on that, when it comes to the county fair and some of those things require a lot of weekend time, especially during the fair. And what's the process from the state standpoint? Are these people contracted for a 40-hour week, and when that 40 hours is done, they're done, or because when you look at the county fair goes from Thursday to Sunday night, and there's an awful lot of hours involved there. And quite frankly, especially when it comes to our 4-H educators that are there, we need them there for all those kids that are they spend their entire year working for that weekend at the fair, and they need the help and assistance of 4-H educators through that process. So, is there issues with that within this contract that?
So at your point 8 right now, that is an issue because they can't work. They don't have the salaried allocation. But like Mindy right now, you do the work until the work is done, and then we work with staff on their hours, having that life balance. So maybe when the fair is done, they take a few days, or maybe they use some vacation time and they're flexing some of the time that they've worked at the fair. So maybe Monday at the fair, you may not have somebody enough, but usually you're doing state fair paperwork at that time. So it's just, we recognize that there's a lot of time put into the fair and then preparing for state fair, and we work with staff to really understand that.
Both those.
Yeah, thinking about office hours and time at the fair and your own personal life and your family, how does that all play into role? But that 80% time is a little bit challenging, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll say, based on conversations that I had with fair board members as well, I mean, there were several comments from different folks that said, I'm over my hours, I need to go home. And I understand that, don't get me wrong. I completely understand that, but I also know that there are times maybe in weeks after where we can allow more flex so that they can be there the entire time. Because when issues happen, and they always do, folks want to go to a staff member, not a volunteer, and I think that's fair, that we make sure we provide that. Other extension counties did help fill the gap, and that was really great for folks that had questions to go up to someone with an extension name tag and could ask questions. But I want to make sure we're communicating to our county staff that we're supportive of the flex that needs to happen, so that during that time, the most visible time really, we're available as much as possible.
Yeah, and it's something that we've been talking about even with our support staff, some of them, they're union contracts. What does that mean? They can't work past 7 o'clock. I mean, there's so much involved in that, and at the same time trying to make sure that they are available to answer questions. We're dealing with this across the state and trying to figure out, I think the best thing we're doing right now is getting ahead of it. Sometime January, sitting down with the staff and saying, okay, who is going to be where, right? We don't need 3 people at the same place. Maybe you're overlapping, and so that people can, maybe you're spending the morning with your family and then you're coming in at 10 o'clock and then somebody's leaving and overlapping, so that we're able to address some of that work-life balance.
So my question would be for Brian. Brian, in terms of an amendment to a contract, could this board make a motion to amend the contract now and get the ball rolling? How is,
It's a 90-day requirement, so I think you could make your motion that you want to do that or propose that, and then it would be a 90-day time frame to then start making that possible. So yeah, you could do that now.
Because we're talking about, what you're talking about, Commissioner Mojo, would be this starting in 2024.
well, the part of the problem,
It's the new hires are out there right now.
right,
Yeah, it'll be starting in October, yeah.
Yeah.
I think you look at number 9 within the contract, it just says that the county university would provide a minimum of 90 days prior notice, but that the county or university any time during the term of the agreement to request modification. So I just think you have to give notice. So I think you'd be voting to provide notice to begin the process.
well, Ms.
Yeah, and I guess my hope and thought process would be, is based on the discussion with Cecilia here this morning, is that she'd take this back to her supervisors. You've already had some ongoing conversation, that maybe if that process could be expedited, because I think from a hiring process, it's been a challenge already. If we flip-flop those jobs and somebody takes a full-time job and in 2 months that goes to a 0.8, that wouldn't be a benefit to anybody as part of that process. And so I think from a transparency standpoint, you know, it would be interesting to hear, I guess, from Cecilia and her bosses, well, it talks about 90 days, if there would be a way that we couldn't do that, expedite that a little bit.
Given the unique circumstances of having 2 positions open. And I think that's where, if this board decides to do something like that, you can relay that in communication and interviews, that there's been a request for this to be, a full-time, or there's been a request for this to be 0.8 with the potential for continuation of funds.
Yeah, the only thing that I will maybe want to clarify is what exactly are we doing with those positions versus a maybe. So if it's a 90, 90, or 80, 100, 90, I need that clarify today so I can.
Okay, so I will make a motion that would be a request to amend the contract with University of Minnesota Extension for the county staffing in reference to Table A to be the Extension Educator AFNR position at 0.8, the Extension Educator 4-H Youth Development positions at 2.0, and then leaving the Program Coordinator of the Master Gardener component to 0.0.
And I'll second that motion.
And I think further discussion and guidance for you, Cecilia, is that you have, both Commissioner Krabenoff and I have been quite active in helping you with the search, but also would certainly help in any conversations that you'd like to have with our environment and natural resources partners to potentially find additional funding to fill any gap if the university sees fit.
Okay, we've got a motion to change the contract from.
The MOA.
Amend the MOU.
Amend the motion, excuse me. From 1.0 to 0.80 for the extension educator, and for the extension educator 4-H youth development from 180 to 2. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you for your presentation, Cecilia. Okay, with that, we'll go into our reports. Paul, can you start us out today?
Okay. All right, thank you. So we're going back to last Tuesday, August 15th, and start out with an adult mental health monthly meeting. The highlights of that meeting were mainly a discussion by our LAC on the discussion of roles of case management, and also with their work following Rule 79. And Rule 79, just as a background, establishes standards and procedures for providing mental health targeted to case management services. So these people follow under this rule. Anyway, we had, it was a very active discussion among, I'd say there were about 5 different groups that spoke to this. So good background. It's always a healthy discussion to hear which each group is doing, what their challenges are, what their successes are, and sometimes they find something they hadn't heard before, and how can we make it better? So that's the whole point of the group in the first place. So the next day would have been the morning of August 16th, Wednesday. Commissioner Gross and I were on the Buffalo Red River Watershed District tour. On that, we did a project tour on 3 restorations down in Morken County, and then as it moved up toward the Comstock area with the Comstock Coulee. But these enhancements that we were looking at were anywhere from 2 to 4 years old that we looked. They're ongoing projects in different phases, but you can see how some of these ditches were the natural meander at one time, then maybe back in the 20s or 1930s, 1940s, people came in and started straightening them all out. And then here we are years later because of that straightening, a lot of overland flooding in many cases in some areas annually. And by coming in and restoring this area and adding buffers to it, it creates an area to handle water, slow the water down, handle the erosion, handle the nitrates that flow around there, and suck it into the, easement area. And then also providing, at the same time, 10-year flood protection for those adjoining properties on their farmland. So much of this, these projects are paid by federal, state, and grants through programs through NRCS, Soil and Water, and others, and Bowser grants. So anyways, very interesting. It was a full busload. I can't remember the number, but anyway, a good morning spent out in the field. Later that day, I had my Historical and Cultural Society monthly meeting. Mainly reviewed the bylaws in regard to virtual meetings, and because we have a number of people on the board that go south in the wintertime, so we just made sure that we're following open meeting law accordingly with those virtual meetings for those people. Also, the other part of that meeting is our big event for the Cultural Society is in November. We have the Pangea event, which is attended by like 900 people, so it's very large, and anyway, they're in the planning stages of that. On the 18th, that'd be Thursday, I had a MetroCog meeting, and 2 things of note on that. We had the adoption of the Transportation Improvement Program. We adopted that plan, and that really, it develops a plan that contains all the federally funded and regionally significant and projects of local significance within the Fargo-Moorhead region. Again, that had been in the works for well over a year back in developing that plan. That was adopted. And then the last part I found very interesting is the urbanization plan. And this is MetroCog's way of looking at the area to provide guidance for North Dakota DOT, Minnesota DOT, where federal and state grants can be taken in a urbanized area. And the reason, and it's a 10-year plan that they'll follow. And the main thing, I guess I'll speak to that growth from what it is currently. On the Clay County side, it will be for the cities of Moorhead and Glendon, expand those boundaries to the extraterritorial areas, and which really isn't really going to affect us all that much. We're not going to grow outside of that anyway during those 10 years. On the North Dakota side, though, it was a big deal because they wanted to make sure that that boundary was following where the diversion's going to go, and have that be on the inside of the diversion so that the cities could be applying for these grants on their own as well as the rural areas for others. So again, that was adopted, and that's being, that was sent on to North Dakota DOT and Minnesota DOT for their review and approval over, hopefully their approval over the next 30 days. So that was big two on that. That evening I had a CAP LP meeting. That was very in-depth and lengthy. We had a spotlight, which we do every month, and it was the housing report by staff Emma Schmidt. This is all about homelessness and helping the most vulnerable being able to live in homes and not be out in shelters. And CAP LP is currently working with about 280 households. And there are three areas: prevention, outreach, and supportive housing programs. And they come in many different ways, but it could be with rental assistance, utility assistance, all sorts of matters to keep them in their homes and going as they go through whatever their situation is, and to move on and get back to be in a stable place without having to move. The next part of the meeting really highlighted the great work that CAP LP does here locally, how well recognized they are federally and within the state. And because of their type of work and the good work they're noted for doing, with the increased state funding that came through legislature this spring, they will be serving 25 state-funded pre-high school spots, and that's a addition of one for the kids in school 4 and older, and then also got state funding, and this is all brand new, bringing 11 new state-funded home-based early head start slots. So that's going to be for your 2 to 4 year olds. So that's really a tremendous thing for CAP LP to receive from the state, as well as the work they're doing so well. Our current president, our chairwoman, I should say, she is Sarah King. She is termed out. She's finishing 9 years of service. With that, Tiffany Ross, who's been our vice chair, will be moving up to chair. And we, anyway, had nominations for vice chair seat. I was elected to that seat, so I will be currently the new vice chair. That will be a 2-year appointment. Then that will also take on some duties as treasurer to the executive board into 2026. So happy to serve in that role and on the executive board. I don't know if I'm to ask, or Steve, or you to ask, or to the board if you would be willing. It may involve 4 meetings, so I wanted to know about per diem on those 4, how you all feel about that. But I'm happy to serve, so.
When I was elected to chair to the executive board, I don't believe we did anything additional. It just would fall within the the previous.
Working the committee? Okay, very good. And then also because of Sarah leaving, that left a board member who was in the private sector that vacated, and so we had applications for new applicants to take that board position. We had 5 people apply, and we came up with a vote that we would bring to our board Rachel Stone McDaniel. And just real quick background with her, very great background, and she wears many hats. She's founder and executive director of P&Q's Etiquette, a youth empowerment and leadership nonprofit in Fargo, and she works with both the Fargo and Murray Public Schools. She's also a motivational speaker, and I found this interesting, the last piece. In 2006, she made history when she ran and became the first African-American woman to be crowned Miss North Dakota International. This opened a great door to her venture out and also become a national spokesperson for Head Start programs. So a lot of background that really fits the role that she'll serve on with CAP-LP. And then last but not least, on Friday we had a early childhood initiative meeting ongoing, and just awareness to all, and we'll make sure that, I hope you're all aware, we have our longest table event coming up on September 14th. They're working hard on all the finalizing those plans. It's going to be held from 6 to 8 p.m. They're hoping upwards of 200 people to attend, and certainly everybody here is invited to be there. We want as many new Americans in our community to come, as well as people in the leadership throughout our communities and schools to join with us to have a meal together on that evening.
Did you say September 14th?
September 14th from 6 to 8 at Salem Lutheran.
I know they sent out an invite and all that.
Yep.
But that's the week we're at AMC, I think. So.
Right, yeah.
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay, Jenny?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last week, I attended the Clay County Land Development Code Update meeting. That, as you recall, is a meeting that we're working with SRF and our planning department to update our ordinances and codes. I had a roundtable discussion about what we thought the biggest areas of concern regarding development regulations in Clay County were. I talked a little bit about ordinance connection to the comprehensive plan, floodplain and shoreland regulations. We did have a representative from DNR there that was able to help provide feedback. I think it's important to note that we're really trying to update this to align for flexibility with our neighbors, but also to not make Clay County so restrictive that it's not an inviting place for people to want to develop, but also making sure that we have thoughtful rules in place that allow our staff to do their job the best way possible. Moving forward, they will be having a presentation at both of the township officers' meetings in November and in March. And if I forgot anything, Commissioner Campbell was also present at that. I attended the Lakes and Prairies Phase 40 spending update meeting for the emergency food and sheltering programs. Good updates from all of the partner agencies that help do that work within that specific lens. As Commissioner Krabenhoft noted, Lakes and Prairies really is doing such immense work in so many different areas of the community, so appreciate their work there. And yesterday I attended the DMV design meetings that were held at the Government Center, moving forward in getting those designs ready so that we can open next year, which is also crazy to say, but making sure that we're thoughtful in terms of access and planning for the future with the state office that will be joining us down the road. And access may be an issue there. I think we're trying to be as thoughtful in designing that for future needs with what the city will require. Mike Love will look at that site plan so that we can move ahead and parcel that off, as noted with the action from Gehrtz Construction earlier. But really an exciting opportunity to really have a even better site for DMV services than our mall site has even provided. And had substantial conversations, 2 conversations with Kaya Harris, as noted from Extension last week. Thanks for this board's flexibility and in making sure Extension can provide the best service possible for the folks that utilize their services in Clay County. And then this morning, as noted from the action that we've already taken, the PIC committee Personnel Issues Committee did meet to discuss the Emergency Preparedness Coordinator position. And that concludes my reports.
Thank you. Tuesday, August 15th, we had our Public Safety Committee meeting, and we started off by going over, we're looking at the one-time funds of $942,000. We're looking at the approved uses. We wanted to make sure that we knew what the approved uses would be. There's really no timeline in place as to when the money would have to be spent, and there would be some reporting requirements, but we did receive presentations from the Clay County Sheriff's Office, as well as the Department of Corrections and the County Attorney's Office. And to nobody's surprise, if all these requests were in there, we wouldn't have enough funds. And in addition, there were some other things that came up that we've already discussed time and time again here, and for example, security at the Family Service Center. And at this point in time, that's probably already been kind of eliminated as a potential option based on all of the other things that we have requests for. We've got other things like embedded social workers in the correctional facility. We've talked about body cameras in the correctional facility, a number of things. And so I think we'll be, obviously we're going to have maybe one more meeting, Steve, and
Mr. Campbell, Commissioner, we are looking at having one more meeting. The committee asked me to provide some additional information based on the requests that were made. And then part of something to consider, part of this process was to come before the full board in a work study group or work session, and then make a formal decision at that following board meeting. So the request for your consideration after this would be to look to have a meeting, a work study or committee of the whole on September 5th at 1 o'clock, if that works into your schedules.
And then, at that point in time, then we would review the things that have come up, and then there will probably be some sort of recommendations that come out of this committee in terms of what should be done there. Then on the August 16th, I also attended the Clay County Land Development Code update that Commissioner Mojo talked about. I really don't have anything more to add to that. We did have somebody from the DNR there too that was talking about some of the floodplain regulation issues that have changed over the years and how we could incorporate some of those. And, we talked about maybe bringing in Gabe Tweeten, and maybe when it comes to floodplain regulation issues as it pertains to DNR regulations, I suggested that they also maybe talk with Dr. Zimmerman from Moorhead, who really understands DNR rules and regulations very well. He could be helpful in establishing what that development code should look like. And I think we're looking at probably, from the time we had that meeting, we're looking at about a 1-year timeline to hopefully finalize what would be considered a development code update to the board. I know they have scheduled a number, I think the committee has 3 or 4 more meetings scheduled throughout the year, And then they will also be dealing with meetings with the Planning Commission and other entities during that process. Yesterday, the 21st, we had the discussion on the Mortar DMV site. I think there was an awful lot of little things that were determined there. We even talked about outside deals, bringing in wiring for the potential for electronic vehicles, you know, from the standpoint of charging. We did determine that it would probably be in our best interest to alter the signage before we were gonna have two separate signs, one for the DMV and one on the other side for the detox facility, and we determined that the best thing would be to put a sign in the middle for both of them, and instead of having two different flagpoles, have one flagpole in between them. So there should be some cost savings for us there on those monument signs. And then talked about bollards for along the building to prevent people from driving up the curb and hitting our building, which has been known to happen from time to time throughout other areas. So and then of course the action that was brought forward by our contractors this morning. And that concludes my report.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the 15th of August, I was also at the Public Safety Committee meeting. A lot of the things, you know, you see $940,000 and you go, that's going to go pretty far. Really isn't. A lot of the things that we're seeing, the very legitimate needs being expressed, are going to be long-term and eventually have to be paid for in means other than this one-time funding. But we've got some real needs in salaries at the county attorney's office and with the sheriff's office, and that's a statewide issue. A lot of things we've got to look at. And but this is a good windfall, and I think there are plenty of good options here that we can come to collectively. On the 17th, I virtually attended the Clay County Suicide and Substance Prevention Coalition. Jason McCoy presented an update. He's with the Positive Community Norms program now, but he's also still overseeing the tobacco laws issues. He addressed the changes that the legislature had on some of this. Medicaid will now in this state be encouraged to pay for nicotine addiction treatment. There'll be a flavor bill that'll be picked up in the next session regarding menthol and fruit-flavored tobacco products. And the $63 million that was part of the Juul settlement will be used for tobacco control, treatment, and not just be put in the general fund. Also we had a report on positive community norms at the DGF school system. And at that point, my computer crashed, and I missed the rest of that meeting. But I will check the minutes when I get them, and if there's something that needs to be brought forward, I'll do it.
Mr. Chair.
What? Let me finish my report.
Yeah, and then I'll add to that if you.
Okay. On the 17th, I met with the Clay County Council on Aging, CAP-LP meeting that we held. We had a very good presentation or discussion around with all the people there involving the Rural Routes program that was presented to us on the CAP-LP budget. There was an acknowledgement that there really is a need for increased ridership. And the people that were present were very enthusiastic about it. The woman over the program in Barnesville had several groups that she said she was going to get with for monthly or biweekly pickups and try and arrange to where they'll use the bus consistently. We had a discussion with, I'm looking for the group here, Helpers, out of Holly. And they deliver meals around the area, around the county. And this would be a great resource for them to have these meals transported. It could be very useful. A couple of the events that we discussed, people that worked out in the rural areas said this would be a great opportunity to use the bus to get people to the senior events that are going on in Moorhead or in other areas of the county. So it was a good conversation that got started. I think there's a real positive approach. We don't want to leave. This services most needy people in the county. And it's good to see that there's some options here that are being explored to make it a little more efficient in the use. And again, it's going to be something that's going to take long-term action and possibly seek some grant funding, but it's a good start from this meeting. We also brought up something near and dear to my heart for 12 years, Senior Safety Academy from Valley Triad. Sheriff Bill and I used to go out every year, and I enjoyed attending those. It's going to be September 14th at the Yomkomst from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Sheriff's Office is going to be there. NDSU Pharmacy is going to be there discussing labeling and over-the-counter drugs. And Red River Dispatch is going to go in there and discuss how to call in and you know, how to have some confidence when you call the dispatch center with a problem. So that's going to be again September 14th, 9 a.m. to 1 at the Yomkomst for our seniors on the annual Senior Safety Academy. And that completes my report.
Do you have something to add, Paul?
Yeah, if you don't mind, and Commissioner Eberger, I thank you for bringing up on the substance abuse. On that last little piece, there was a grant out there called Positive Norn Grants that were put out, and they're 5-year grants, and right now, the one very active is with Dilworth, Glen, and Felton. And it's with the youth in the schools, and they survey them about their habits towards using tobacco, vaping, or alcohol and drugs. And it's really much a way of focusing on the science of positive. And their point is, if we want health, we need to promote good health. So how do we do that? And they do it by surveys to find out what are kids really doing in the schools. And when they ask these kids at DGF, 91% in their survey, 91% of them said they don't drink in a typical month. 95% don't use marijuana. 92% don't vape. And yet the perception by the students of themselves is about 56% thought that there was more than there was. In other words, more abuse than there was, and that the kids are really really doing a good job. So the idea of this whole grant, this whole initiative, is the fact of giving T-shirt, swag wear events, all these things promoting what a good job young adults are doing versus the negative, we got a problem out there with the kids. So anyway, I thought it was really, really good information, and I appreciate you, just remind me about that. So thank you.
I just hope that information you receive in those surveys are accurate.
Well, they have them vetted 6 rounds, 6 times. So even if it's half true, it's good.
Well, I'm glad to hear that report. As far as mine, I just was on that tour with Commissioner Kravinoff on the Buffalo Red River. It's just amazing if you drive, I mean, we've got level land on the northern part of Red River Valley, but you go down to the southern part, that is level. I have no idea how they get rid of that water. That watershed, Buffalo watershed has a tremendous job, and they're doing a tremendous job in the 3 projects they took us to. You know, it's just amazing how they can get that water out of there. You know, it's just, it was a great tour. Saturday, I attended the Yule Parade. This morning, I had the PIC committee, which we covered during our agenda, and that was my meetings.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last Tuesday, I participated in the Public Safety Committee meeting that has been addressed already. I will set up a second meeting here in the coming days. On the 16th, we had a pre-budget meeting with Cecilia and Extension that was addressed this morning. On the 16th, I also met with Darren and Anna in regards to a series of HR issues in the county. The 16th, we also met as a risk management committee. This is our first policy meeting. I think that this is something that we've talked about as a county. We have different pieces that address our risk management as a county, but we don't have a collaborate overreaching policy, and so we're working towards that to ensure that the county is in the least amount position of liability. And so we'll be bringing that before the board in the coming months. Also participated in the development code update discussion that has been taking place. This board will receive an update as we move through that process also. On the 17th, I had a MCC JPA pre-meeting. We're scheduled to meet this Thursday, I believe. And we've had some special meetings, so the agenda looks to be a little bit smaller than what we've had in previous weeks. On the 18th, I met with Jackie, just on continuing to formulate our communications department, and we talked about a number of things there. Yesterday, I participated also in the DMV design meeting. It's exciting to see the 3D designs of what that building's going to look like, and a presentation will be coming before this board here in not too many weeks. Participated this morning in the PIC meeting. That has been well addressed. And also, I'll be sending out an email to the commission. We'll be looking to set up our rural cities meeting coming up here this fall. And so they're looking for some dates to make sure that everyone's available. And that concludes my report.
Okay, just a reminder, next week, no meeting. Brian, you have something for us? Okay, Darren, you okay? Of course, Jackie always has something.
Well, you took half of mine, but yeah, we're just gonna remind that we don't have board next week, so.
Okay.
And then we have Monday, September 4th, we have a holiday, so we will be closed.
Very good. Okay, we're adjourned.